Hello. I just realised that this podcast has got 70 reviews on iTunes. So thank you everyone who has left a review and average rating of 5 stars, which is unbelievable. I really appreciate it. Supposedly it helps the podcast getting found. So if you could have a chance to leave a 5-star review or whatever you feel it's worth, I'd really appreciate that. If you also would enjoy the podcast at any stage, sharing it on your Instagram stories really helps as well in terms of other people discovering it. So, without further ado, this podcast is brought to you by Apparel and by Small Changes. If you're a fella that does yoga, a lot of yoga, and you're tired of wearing like cut off jeans, don't know why you'd wear them, but if you're wearing like short shorts or kind of makeshift tracksuit bottoms, then why not check out They got loads of gear down there. They got vests, they got shorts, they got hoodies, they got chinos, they got the whole lot. So not just yoga stuff, but stuff for off the mat as well. And the reason why I've partnered with for so long is that they believe in sustainable manufacturing, in using recycled fabrics. And when you get their products through the post, you get them in recycled paper as well. I think this is so important because producing fabrics that are eco-certified is so much better for our planet. So if you go to om.com #TYLP and you check out their full range of eco-activewear, you get a 15% discount off when you use the promo code Kevin. So that's Kevin at checkout for 15% off when you visit ohmme.com /TYLP. Last and not least is Small Changes. Is about looking good on the outside, all right, and doing your bit for the environment, for everything around you. But what about your inner environment? You know what I'm saying? See what I did there? Small Changes is a shop. It's an organic, eco-friendly, plant-based whole foods and products shop. Refills and juice bar. They got the whole lot with zero waste ethos. In Drumcondra, and they're opening a new one here in Glasnevin, which is actually exclusive. I don't know if I can say this, but I'm going to say it. It's 40-seater. So they're opening a new build where you can go and actually have some lunch and do your grocery shopping. That's going to be opening at the end of the summer, I believe. So check out smallchanges.ie. If you're down there and you see Pada, feel free to tell him you were speaking to me, or listening to me at least. In terms of a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce the guest, 2 things coming up is my handstand workshop on July 6th. That is in the Elbow Room, not YogaHub. So July 6th, there's 5 places left. We could take in 22 people in total. And then on the 27th of July, yes, in the YogaHub in Castle Knock, Junction 6, I'm hosting the Teacher Training Open Day at 3 p.m. Saturday. So that's a free event, the second one. You can come along if you're thinking about doing a 200-hour like I did a few years ago. Then come along, ask questions that you have. And that's it. That's all I've got to say for that intro. So without further ado, here is Nico Luce. Hey Nico, how's it going?
Good.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
This isn't planned, as you said. You don't know the questions.
Yeah.
But what I'm really interested to talk to you about is your teacher training methodology and how you this conversation and this idea for wanting to speak with you came from Brian Malone. Mm-hmm. So Brian Malone is a colleague of mine who works in YogaHub, and I was asking him, I said, what's Nico like? I've heard a lot about him because he observed you on one of your teacher trainings.
Yeah.
And he said that there was one occasion where the class were talking. They're doing an exercise and they're quite loud. And you sat there, closed your eyes, cross-legged, and waited for them to stop talking. And I thought, wow, because I've been in a lot of teacher training environments. Like Josh Summers, for example, who teaches yin as well, will kind of bit more formal, will tell people to basically, okay, be quiet. Bryce, who are Dyson
Yeah,
Brownie,
yeah.
they do a clap like I did at the start there, and we, it's a synced clap together. Patrick Beach will kind of tell everyone just, okay, guys. And so there's so many ways you can manage a room. And what I'm interested in to talk to you about is how you manage and how your path has changed from when you first started teacher training to now, because you've been doing yoga for such a long time. So when was the first teacher training that you can remember? How long ago was it?
Okay, first teacher training, I think it was 2012 that I taught it. I co-taught it, so my friend Todd had a teacher training already, and he invited me to teach his teacher training.
Okay. And since you started, so that's 2012?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So since then and now, how have you changed in terms of how you manage a room? Because I believe that's... the reason why I'm so interested in this, by the way, is that I'm leading my first teacher training in September. And I'm very comfortable talking in front of people and teaching a class. But from what I've researched and experienced, teacher training is as much about teaching as it is managing a room. So my question to you is, how has your kind of skills changed, and how have you developed that skill?
Okay, it's a huge question, and there's so many angles to that. But talking about how do we call for attention, we learn in different ways, but one of the most straightforward ways to learning anything is by demoing. And then you demo that, and then you role model the behavior that you're looking for. So if you don't go there, how do you expect people to actually to go there? And so I'm always thinking, what is it needed from me in order to do that? As you know, there's a big part of, for example, of teacher training. In the way I structure mine is we start with a practice. And when I'm teaching the practice in the morning, I role model the way I'm asking them to teach. Because otherwise it would not be credible when I ask people, for example, to use different tones of the voice and I'm not doing it. So I need to be very clear as to what is it that I'm teaching, and am I demoing that? And because the first impression that they will have is they being exposed to that. And then you can draw from that on the rest of the training, the rest of the day. This is what we're focusing on today. And you have to go there first. You got to open the door and you have to do that. Otherwise, it's just not credible. You're asking something that you don't do, and it's like, well, why would people do it?
Yeah, it's like, I love that thing you said, the Tao that needs to be spoken isn't the Tao, as in you need to lead by example. And I think actually people, when you go through school life, we kind of have resistance to being told what to do. I think that, hello, it's all good. So yes, by the way, we're in the our podcast studio today is the stock room of YogaHub. So but I think that's so true that people are resistant to an authority figure. A lot of people are, and I think that in a teacher training environment, people are really sensitive. Like people, when I did my teacher training, it was not uncommon for people to cry, for people to get really emotional all the time, because it's so intense. You're spending all day there, so it's really, you have to be quite gentle. And in terms of like what you've learned since you first started doing teacher training, what have you found like doesn't work in things that you've tried out before that maybe you don't do anymore, or that you've seen perhaps?
Well, the first one is integrity, and is what we were talking before. If we got to put ourselves in that position first to call for that action or that word or whatever qualities that we're invoking. So it starts with integrity, starts from walking the talk. The second one would be, let's do it in the positive. Instead of talking what doesn't work, let's talk about what works. Is to really see where the students are at, and to move organically from where they are at to our intention, to where we want them to go, as opposed to coming up with a set idea that, well, today this is what needs to happen, because it may not happen, because they may not be there today. So yes, you have an intention and you have a plan, and then you look around and you got to start from where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And because we always start I always start the training, the morning, with the practice, and then we do circle, and there's space for them to express where they are at.
Mm-hmm.
I always start after the practice is always question time, and any lecture and on anatomy or philosophy or biomechanics or teaching methodology, it always starts with, do you have any questions of what we've done?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a great time. Or we do a circle in, where are you at right now? What's going on right now? And it's one of my favorite things that I acquired in the last 4 or 5 years, is using nonviolent communication. The technique on what happened, how do you feel, and what are your needs? And then they can express that. They can refer to the past. This is what happened. They refer to the now in their sensitivity. This is what's going on right now. This is what I'm feeling right now, and these are my personal needs. The fourth part of that is, what is your request then? And making the distinction between needs and request. We all have personal needs. We need to be responsible for our own needs, but we can express the request. And for example, someone could have gone through the morning practice. I'm going to refer to what just happened today. So today we're in a Yin Teacher Training. It's day number 2. The morning practice was an hour of Yin and then an hour of Yang. And yesterday we did the opposite. We did an hour of Yang, an hour of Yin. And tomorrow we're going to do half an hour of Yin, then 1 hour of Yang, and then half an hour of Yin. The idea is to expose them to different combinations on how they can use it. The 4th day is going to be 2 hours of Yin, so no Yang. But then there's space after that to what happened. How did it feel in your body? How do you feel in your mind? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? We don't have to be in agreement. And that's fine. For some people, they love warming up, creating heat, and then cooling down. Other people, it's like, I love to start with the edge of Yin, and then I can get into Yang. It doesn't matter. It's like they're all different combinations, and it's not one size fits all. There's space for variation. There's space for personal interpretation. There's space to explore. And if we can contain, one of the biggest things, and you said it, is we're not only teaching the content, but we are creating a context, so then we can deliver the content. Let's create space so all possibilities can fit. Just like when we want to create space in a class that everybody fits, everybody fits. There's something for everybody. We may need to modify the pose, we may need to add another variation of the pose, but everybody's welcome here. So contextually, let's hold the space like that.
But when you're holding that space and you're trying to get through the curriculum, to give them what they need for that day, but also have a lot of interaction. What I've seen is there's two kind of ways of doing that. One, you can be quite strict. Someone could, not you specifically, but the trainer could be quite strict and say, okay, guys, let's get through this. This is what we have to do for today. And like what I've seen before is no questions unless we get to the very end. And then what I've noticed is the downside of that is people get a bit shy then to ask a question and they don't open up. But on the flip side, if people can put their hand up at any time, it creates more interaction, but maybe you don't get through the curriculum as much. And what I'm not saying one is wrong or right, because they're different techniques, but what I've found really interesting about something you said before is about getting people to open up. You mentioned that you studied acting.
Yeah.
And when you sat down with, would sit down, one of the techniques you did for your study was to sit opposite someone and ask them, how are you? And then sit there and see what unfolds. And I find that type of technique fascinating, because I was in Bali a couple of weeks ago, and we did this long eye contact holding with people. And I was with my girlfriend, and I started crying. I couldn't, it was the first time I've ever cried in front of my girlfriend, but it completely opened me up to, then we started dancing, 9 a.m. in the morning. And I don't drink alcohol anymore, and normally I've never danced while sober. So I thought, wow, techniques like this can really take layers off. And I'm wondering, I'm fascinated, like, do you use any technique like this at all when you're teaching teacher training? Like these type of long eye holding, or asking how are you and sitting there for half an hour with the do you use anything like that with the students?
So I would say that I use a combination between the two. You said either you ask the question at the beginning or you ask the question at the end. In my trainings, there's space for questions anytime. And it's up to us, whoever is leading, to monitor how much interaction we have on the spot and how much content we can move through. I definitely don't want to move through content if I don't hear first where the students are at, going back to that point. So I have no problem anybody raising the hand. Sometimes I'm in the middle of a point and I would say, hold that thought. And when I finish my point, I go back to that student.
Yeah.
But it keeps it more real. It keeps it more in the moment as to what is needed right now. I definitely want to create a space in which every student feels that they can express themselves. They can ask any question. It's not intimidating. That's my job, is to teach, and I cannot teach if I don't know what they need to know. So I choose the middle way that way. I like to start with questions. I go through content, and then there's space to ask questions as the content happens, because some of those questions are so relevant. I may be presenting it in a way that is not landing, and if I don't listen to the question, it is not sinking in. And I need to keep it real. I need to make eye contact. I need to see if people are understanding, and then that is a key part of it. Regarding exercises from acting, I only use them if I feel that someone can benefit from that. And sometimes if you notice that half the group can benefit from that, it's like, okay, we're all going to do it. But otherwise, not necessarily. I in a few trainings, I had people that had a hard time projecting their voice.
Yeah.
So then, yes, I use several acting techniques. For example, I put them in a corner and they talk to the corner of the wall, and that we need to be able to hear them anywhere. Or I blindfold them, and it's like, now you teach, and you cannot see what you're saying, but we can let you know if what you're saying makes sense or not. So now you need to know, and you need to visualize it.
You blindfold the
teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they explain, like, teach a pose.
Yeah, they teach a pose. They have to teach a transition. So now they have to see inside. They remember. They've been practicing yoga for a long time. What is it like? There are many techniques, but again, in some groups you don't need them. Sometimes it's cultural. But I've been teaching trainings in 4 continents, and you definitely notice cultural patterns.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And for example, in Italy, you rarely have to tell a student to speak up. Right. They are like, culturally, it's okay to be loud, and it's okay to when they express themselves. So, but in other places, it's not okay. It's not if people are loud, or there are cultural boundaries. The bottom line, we want to train communicators. A teacher is a communicator. So giving tools for them to communicate in an authentic way and effective. It has to be both. It has to work. I got to be able to follow what they're saying.
Yeah, I think the speaking, the public speaking, so many people are very scared of that. And especially in front of your peers. When you're teaching people that are students, or they don't know maybe as much about yoga as you do, it's way easier. But the most nervous I've ever been was teaching my peers.
Yeah.
Because they know if I'm making a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's can be quite hard to get over. I actually believe that is so important, is how you project your voice. And I'm sure anyone that comes from a theatrical background has an advantage when it comes to teaching, I imagine.
Could be, but we could also fake it, and then it's not authentic. It sounded great, but I didn't buy any word.
Yes, yeah.
And
if you're acting, people feel that, don't they?
So it's not a performance in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that before. It sounded great. It didn't feel real.
Huh.
And it's got to be real, too. I would say that definitely if you have not just the acting background, I say that anybody that is trained in a creative field, I've seen it in painters, I've seen it in musicians, I've seen it in actors and dancers. They know that it's something that goes from inside to outside. And they know when they are feeling it and when it's real and when they are faking it. And so do we, because the other side, the audience, can also read very well. So yes, they have the advantage of having trained for years on the creative side, on being spontaneous, and the disadvantage could be it's a little too rehearsed. It's a little too, it's been thought out a little too much. It's too much following a script. They have an advantage, and they could have a disadvantage in that as well.
I suppose knowing how to use your voice as a tool is an advantage. Learning how to physically use your voice as a tool, the pitch, tone, frequency, all that type of stuff. But then sounds cliche, but to find your own voice. I mean, at the start, I tried to speak when I was teaching yoga a lot more eloquently. And then I realized actually my strength was people was kind of just speaking as I normally speak, which is kind of like a bit London, a bit, I don't really probably sound that, I don't know, sophisticated, but it suits my style. And, but it takes a while to I think, develop that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also to use language that you're comfortable with. I mean, I like to thread philosophy into my teaching, but I do it in a way that's the man on the street could understand, because that's how I understood it.
Yeah.
When people refer to ancient texts, I would be a bit resistant when they would use terms that I didn't understand, but they could explain the same concept in a more basic term, especially as well. Men coming into yoga, because I think, and I don't like to, or people that identify as men, I don't like to, I don't like to, so people that identify as men, I mean, men I think are a lot more kind of, take my girlfriend for example. I always mention her in my podcast, but she's been sending me, she's going to hate me saying this, but she's at Body and Soul today, and she's sending me messages about a tarot card reader she went to, saying about our relationship, because the tarot card reader said about, and mine a bit more practical. So I've realized more men come to my classes now, and just the masculine energy is more into practicality. Can you explain this in a way that I can understand? Whereas I think the feminine energy is more about the senses and the emotional side. So understanding both of them, but speaking in a way that is, you're talking to people that, understanding what the people need in the class you go to. So if I'm teaching a class and people are new, and they're, they've never been to India, or they're just speak in a way that's not going to be threatening for them, alienate them. But again, as you said, like a teacher training, you've got to look at the room and read the room. And see what they need. So I'm conscious that it's lunchtime and we want to have our lunch, and so I don't want to keep you for too long. But I just want to ask you, because you are a true international teacher. I mean, you go all around the world. You live in Switzerland. Yeah. You're from Buenos Aires.
Born in France, I grew up in Buenos Aires.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. All right. Hey, but now you're in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And so do you spend most of your time, do you teach public classes in Switzerland?
I don't.
No.
No, I haven't taught a public class in 6 years.
Wow. So your main activity is teacher trainings and workshops?
And retreats.
And retreats.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And out of all of them, which is like your most favorite to do out of those three?
I only do what I like, so I like all three.
Okay.
Yet I deeply enjoy teacher training because I love going deep into all the aspects, and it's the right format to delve into texts and to look at anatomy and to actually to develop language. You were talking about how do we speak. Definitely we want to speak to, my goal is to speak to everyone that shows to class and to speak in a term that everybody can understand. And yet I'm an educator, so it is also my responsibility to educate, and I can introduce either language or terms that are foreign to people. Otherwise, there would be no growth. It would be the equivalent to if we were talking about the physical, and if I only move in the way people move. It's like, well, we know that when we start practicing, we still don't know the refinement of the movement, but that doesn't mean that I'm only going to show an unrefined movement. I know where we are right now, and I know the progression as to how this can go, but I also want to give them the possibility, open the space for them to grow. And not everybody, some people, they may be the first time practicing yoga, but they've been doing gymnastics for 10 years. They can follow. They know what you're talking about. It may be the first yoga class, but they may hold handstand for 2 minutes. Some people come from, I don't want to make any assumptions on anybody.
Yeah.
And some people have read a lot. We have philosophers and anatomists and people that come to class. So yes, we talk to the common person, but we also imply refinement.
Yeah. Do you know what? A great point, because I suppose it's how you frame it as well. For example, I always make the sound of the always start and finish, and I'll frame it in a way. Look, I understand you may be a bit resistant to this, and I try to explain that if you're not comfortable, you can make a humming sound, or maybe even if you're not comfortable, do it anyway. No big deal. So I actually that's a really good point, Nico, because how I came into yoga was I met a teacher who spoke like I spoke, and I was like, oh, I could be like him. He's like me. But then, as you said, in order for growth, sometimes you do have to push people, but not push people, sorry, pull people into the direction of, like more philosophy, but to that's how you frame it. So you're kind of, that is actually a great point. It's how you put it across. Yeah, man.
You got it. It's the how.
Yeah.
Let's teach the how.
Yeah.
And teacher training is about the how. They know the what. Let's teach the how. Let's train how to teach the how.
Yeah.
And let's remember why. Because the how relates to the why. Why do we do this? And if we forget why, then it's pointless. You're going nowhere with it. Yeah, it's looking really good, and it's going nowhere. So the distinction between the form, we're talking about hatha yoga, physical as a form, and the action. And the form is external and the action is internal. And to me, the action is more important than the form, meaning it may not look like the cover of Yoga Journal, and yet it's happening on the inside. And sometimes it looks really good, and it doesn't feel that good on the inside. And we have way too much evidence all around us. We are in an age of social media, which is the way you want to portray yourself. You show yourself the way you want to be seen. We know very well that's not the entire picture of who we are.
Yeah.
And for as long as you know that, no problem. Both in yourself. So when you put yourself, I'm not asking you to you show yourself the way you want it. That's not the entire picture, probably. And so when I see someone else's profile, I understand that that's how they want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know that there's another side, that there's a depth to that. I have no problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the entire picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could chat to you for longer.
Yeah, it's
but
been great.
You're a busy man. So thanks so much, Nico. If people want to know more about you, where would they go?
Yeah, nicoluce.com is my
Yeah.
website, and Nico Luce Yoga. What's my name? Nico Luce Yoga. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not very regular. I get that criticism often. I don't care. I only post when I feel like posting, and I take my breaks whenever I want to take my break.
Yeah.
Someone said, I got this review 2 years ago. And somehow someone said, he was saying the 10 best profiles on Facebook for yoga.
Mm.
And somehow they put my name there with other great names of people that I follow. And they have awesome pages. And the review was really good because he was saying what was good about each one of these 10 profiles and what was lacking. So in mine, the review is exact. He was saying he's not consistent,
Right.
and he's not going to show you more than what he wants you to see. So, for example, you never see in any of my posts what I eat. You don't see where I sleep. You don't see my house. You don't see my family. I have 2 kids and I have a wife. They all have their own profile. They do whatever they want. They showcase the way they want it. It's not my job to portray them the way I want them. It would be unfair. I don't want to promote myself on anybody else's profile. Not my kids, not my wife, not my great colleagues that I work with. So I have certain boundaries there, and I'm not going to change them, at least for the time being. So I thought it was a great feedback. I got back and I said, thank you. That's exactly where it is. And not that I'm going to do anything about it, but you got it.
But now you're at a stage where other people promote you anyway.
Yeah.
I knew about you outside of Instagram because word of mouth, and also, you've just been doing it for so long. So once again, thank you so much, Nico.
Thank you, Kevin.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Ciao.
Yeah, man. Sweet. This podcast was brought to you by Apparel and Small Changes. Apparel are a men's clothing brand that want to encourage more fellas to do yoga. Yoga is reflected in everything they do, from how they manufacture their clothing to how they use sustainable recycled fabrics and even their paper packaging, all recycled. Their fabrics are eco-certified because we need to start looking after our planet. Go to om.com/#TYLP and check out their full range of eco-active wear for men. Use the promo code Kevin and you get 15% off all items apart from clearance items. So that's Kevin at checkout, 15% off when you go to om.com/#TYLP. Lastly, Small Changes. If you're in the Dublin area, go and visit them. You may see Pada, who was on the podcast a few episodes ago. Organic, eco-friendly, plant-based whole foods and products. Refills juice bar with zero waste ethos in Drumcondra, soon to be in Glasnevin. For me, events coming up. We got my handstand workshop, which is next week, July 6th in the Elba Room, Smithfield. So that's July 6th, Saturday, Elba Room, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's €29, 10% off for members of the Elba Room. And then 3 weeks after that, I have my open day for YogaHub Teacher Training, which is 3 p.m. 27th in YogaHub Castle Knock, Junction 6. That's a free event. Come along if you're thinking of doing a teacher training, 200 hour with me and Catherine Henley and some other great teachers. If you're thinking of doing it and you want to ask a few questions, it's starting in September. Come along, you get to meet some other potential future trainees and maybe future best friends. So all information can be found on kevinboyleyoga.ie. Thanks so much for listening. Please leave a review on iTunes or share with your friends on your IG stories. Be good, have a powerful week. Thank you so much.